Hello, Dr. G. Justin Dennis here in your Kin 454 class. Just presenting my CAP assignment. So the title for my CAP assignment is Weight Loss in College-Age Males. So my target population and the rationale. My target population was males between the ages of 18 and 25 that are attempting to lose weight. The reason that I chose this population is I really wanted to focus on a college population and just being a personal trainer at the rec, I felt like this was a population I had great access to. So that kind of leads me into why I chose this target population. Is I became an NASM certified personal trainer in August of 2018, and then I began working as a personal trainer at the CBU rec in October of 2018. And I just started to see some common patterns that some people reach their exercise goals and some don't. So at the recreation center, we get 6 sessions with each client, and after that 6 session, um, I would kind of reach out to some people and I would ask them how their physical activity is going and if they're continuing to reach their goals and making progress. And some would say yes and that they're continuing to strive towards their goals, and some are doing great. And then others would say, I haven't been to the gym or done any physical activity since our last session. And I just found this really interesting, and I feel like this is kind of something that the healthcare industry has been grappling with for a while. And so I just kind of wanted to look into it in a more psychological realm. So now getting into the project, my motivation was the first kind of area I studied, the difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So with intrinsic motivation, that's really going to come from within the person. They're going to kind of have that go-getter type attitude, and they don't really need someone to tell them what to do. They kind of just go after it themselves, and they kind of desire to participate in physical activity. Where on the other hand, an extrinsic motivation person is going to be they're going to want rewards, like medals or a green jacket in golf. And so, these people really need someone to tell them to participate in physical activity and to tell them what to do, pretty much. In the healthcare industry. And so, one article that I found while I was searching for journal articles in this project, was that physical activity is positively correlated with intrinsic motivation, but negatively correlated with extrinsic motivation. And so I just found this really interesting, that people who are intrinsically motivated are definitely more likely to participate in physical activity and don't really need someone to tell them what to do all the time, whereas people who are extrinsically motivated, tend to need that person to continually tell them to go to the gym or participate in physical activity. And so I just found that motivation and comparing intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, just kind of looking at my clientele and my population, was a fascinating area. So one of the components that can affect physical activity is definitely stress. So Weinberg and Gould um, say examples of stress include uncertainty, whether that be going to the gym just with all the different equipment, with the loud music and all the people. There can be some uncertainty. There can also be sources of personal stress, such as familial stress, relationship stress, school stress, just different things like that. There can also be trait anxiety and self-esteem. So one of the components that I really looked at was, how does trait anxiety contribute to stress? I looked at how, maybe someone's past experiences with physical activity, or the lack of past experience with physical activity, can create kind of the stress and anxiety related with going to the gym or participating in physical activity. For example, one of my clients didn't really participate in physical activity when he was younger, so he really had some predisposed stress and trait anxiety to physical activity and working out at the rec. And then also, self-esteem. How does that play a role in stress? It's really interesting to look at these people with high self-esteem. Even though the rec center may be kind of overwhelming at first, these people with high self-esteem are more likely to overcome that overwhelmingness and participate in physical activity anyways, whereas someone with low self-esteem might need kind of that extra push to get over that overwhelming sensation that the rec sometimes provides. And then also the need for feedback, looking at that with clients, it's um, just in our book again, feedback, should be specific, sincere, and contingent upon some type of specific behavior. So not generalizing feedback, really just kind of honing in on what a client either doing well or improper in relation to form or how many times a week they're coming. And then also, I found that subjective feedback could be perceived either positively or negatively. So, for example, with one of my clients, I critiqued his squat form one time, and that is generally subjective. And although there is some objective in there, it's generally subjective. And he got kind of defensive, and I was trying to explain to him that it wasn't anything personal. And I started to think that this might have been because of maybe a past personal trainer that he felt attacked when he would explain things to him, or maybe in the past his parents or his grandparents were really critical of him, and so this subjective feedback that I was giving him could have been he could have gotten defensive because of past experiences that he's had. And then another research article I found was that um, feedback on objectively monitored physical activity had moderately positive effects on levels of physical activity. So, for example, if someone was to increase their squat form or repetition max, that's going to be completely objective, and so that would increase their motivation to come back and increase that even farther. Or if a client ran a faster mile than they had before, that's going to motivate them to come back to the gym and participate more in physical activity. So reinforcement, ways to increase reinforcement, intrinsic motivation using reinforcement is to either give rewards contingent upon performance or use verbal or nonverbal praise. The nonverbal praise can be as simple as a pat on the back or a high five. Giving rewards on contingent performance is if a client completes a really hard workout, they can either go look at the stars, go to the beach, or ride a motorcycle or something like that. And then also one of the articles I found is that reinforcement through sending encouraging texts and congratulatory texts actually increased intrinsic motivation. So this study was done on a type 2 diabetes population on their walking speed. And so I started to employ this with my clients, and I really found that people were going to the gym more and they were kind of working out harder than they had before I started to employ this technique. So an outcome goal is really going to be focused on kind of beating a competitor or an opponent. And so the way that I structured these is a client trying to beat me as their personal trainer. And so for a short-term goal, it would be to perform more bench press repetitions than me with 225 pounds. Right now, we can both perform one repetition. So if they can perform two, they can beat me in that repetition outcome goal. So a strategy that I employed for them would be to bench press 2 times a week, doing 6 sets of 2 to 3 repetitions using weight between 205 and 225 pounds. This is really going to allow them to get comfortable with that amount of weight and allow them to push past that one repetition max to beat me in the outcome goal. A long-term outcome goal would be to beat me as their personal trainer in a timed 1-minute mile. Right now I can run about a 25-second faster mile than one of my clients, and so for him to it would be a long-term goal would be to beat me in that 1-mile race. And so what I told him to do would be to run on the treadmill 1 time a week, increasing the speed that he runs at by 0.1 mile an hour each time they run per week. And then a performance goal is going to be kind of comparing your current performance to your past performance. So a short-term goal would be to participate in physical activity 5 times in a week as opposed to 4 times in a week. So for one client, participated in physical activity 4 times in the previous week. So I just encourage them to perform in physical activity 1 more time this week. So the way that we're going to do that is to make a schedule for the physical activity, on what specific days they're going to perform physical activity and what they are specifically going to do. And then a long-term performance goal could be to increase their 1 repetition squat max to 225 pounds, as right now they can squat 185 pounds. So the strategy for this would be to squat 1 time per week, performing 5 repetitions or 5 sets, excuse me, of 6 repetitions, increasing the weight by 10 pounds each set. And so I would originally have them start at 150 pounds in the first week and then increase by 10 pounds each set. And then in the following week, I would encourage him to start with 5 pounds heavier. So I would have him start that second week at 155 pounds and then increase the reps, or increase by 10 pounds each set. And then in the third week, start at 160 and then so on. So, and then the process goal is going to be what they kind of need to complete in order to perform better. So for a short-term goal, it would be to keep a flat back while performing push-ups instead of arching their back, making it convex. And so the strategy to impose would be holding a push-up position 2 times per week for 30 seconds to strengthen their core. This is going to allow them to keep that flat back. And then for the long-term goal, it would be to stretch their hip flexors to increase their depth when they squat. So a strategy for that would be to perform a half kneeling hip flexor stretch on each side for 5 minutes 2 times per week to increase their mobility. And then my mission statement, just as I continue in my career, is whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but who hates correction is stupid. So just Proverbs 12:1 really speaks to me. Just as I become a professional, I never want to believe I know everything, and so always want to be open to discipline and correction. And then some things that I learned in this class is, a situation that an athlete perceives as threatening can cause state anxiety, which can ultimately lead to injury. And then I also found the 5 stages of grief pretty interesting. Just looking back on my past history, just participating in sports, it's pretty interesting to look at the times that I was injured and went through these stages as well. And here are my references. Thanks for a great course, Dr. G. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you.